Hey, Professor Homa here. Going to go over the last part of this reading flyer, and I'm just going to do a couple things, put a couple shadows on images, resize a little bit, maybe just a couple effects, an outline, maybe a shadow on the text, and maybe I'll do that background like I did on here just to show how to make a custom gradient in InDesign. So I'll go through this as quick as I can because I don't want to drag this out too much. I'll zoom in to the bottom here, and I'm not going to, spend a whole lot of time tweaking, although it is nice to kind of look at it from back here, look at the full page view and see kind of what's standing out. And I could use maybe something at the bottom that stands out a little. And this little area about this reading is free and open to the public is kind of a nice line that I may want to, kind of punch that with that Helvetica condensed black again. So I might try that and just see how it looks, just to make it get a little punch at the bottom. I could even do that in red if I want. So I'll highlight it and make it the red color that I had. It just gives a little bit of punch, a little bit more variation. We'll see if it's too much or not, but just looking from the back, we got red, red, red. You don't want to go crazy with the color. You just want to use little splashes of it here and there because we have some color images. Now, one thing I'm going to do with this image here, I'm going to highlight this image, and I might put a little bit of a stroke on this. So just click on the frame itself, and you could put a stroke on there, and I'm going to make a real thin stroke on here. It goes 1 point by default, and I'm going to make it like half a point. I don't want very much, just a little bit of an outline on there. I'm also going to put a drop shadow to do that, and it's hard to find. The way they apply drop shadows in InDesign is odd. They call it effects. There's effects here, there's effects here. Actually, this might be the easiest place, but if you can't find it, you could go to Object Effects and you could go to Drop Shadow. You could see there's also an icon here, but I'll go to here and go Drop Shadow, and when it comes up, it has this big window, and when you turn it on, you have to preview it. You can see it's a real harsh kind of drop shadow to start. And I'll move this over, and you can see there's a preview on it, so I can see it, and it's too dark right now. So I'm going to turn that opacity down to maybe about 40, 45. I don't want it really standing out, just a little accent. And then also it's too far away. I don't want it to look like it's floating above the page. So they have 0.09 here. If you go down to, if you click, it goes down to 0. So you might even do it like half, like 0.04. I think that's probably the best way to go. I'm going to do 0.04 and 0.04. And I did 0.04. Also over here for size, I'm going to do the 0.0, I'll do like 0.05 over here. And I'll hit OK. And that looks good. So I have a stroke and drop shadow on that. That's about all I want. If I zoom out a little bit, I'll take a look at it, and that looks nice. And this may be something where I may also want to rotate a little. Now this picture here, and I'm going to take this temporarily over here. Now you might say why? You might say why, but I actually want it similar to the width of the book. And what I'm going to do is, instead of resizing, I'm just going to move this in a little bit, and maybe I talked about cropping our hands a little bit. And I'm just going to move that in a little bit, maybe the width of the book. And then I can click on the middle here, and you can see now I could kind of recenter this a little bit. And I think that looks nice. It has a nice kind of look to it. I'll move it up a little bit. I don't necessarily want to have our hands in there. I think it's fine just seeing her face like that, and I think that's good. So I'm going to leave that like that for now. Now if I want to put a drop shadow on there, Photoshop has a real easy way to copy effects. I don't know if they have a copy effect here. You can actually save your effects as an object style, but I think what I'll do is I'll just apply it from scratch. I'll just go to effects and go to drop shadow. And again, I did like 45 up here. I did this at 0.04. Same kind of drop shadow on this, and then I might even put a little, this might be something where I might want to put like a little white frame on it, and maybe even give it that little snapshot kind of frame like that, just a subtle kind of frame like that. And I'll zoom out a little bit, and I'll put these back where they were. I'll put this one over here, and I'll kind of line it up with the top of the text. I might rotate it a little bit, and then this one I might rotate a little bit. Again, I won't spend a lot of time weighing design decisions, but I think this looks okay so far. It's very balanced. It might need a little more movement here or there, having something up higher and something down lower. This might be better down lower, and this might be better up a little higher, just to give a little more movement You know, sometimes if you're too symmetrical, it kind of makes it static because it's very centered already. So everything's very static. So just by moving one up and one down, that creates a little movement. So if you need movement, you know, don't be afraid to add a little movement. I'll move that up there instead of having the equal amount of space all around. So I think that looks okay for now. One thing I set up here. Now, if I want to put a drop shadow on this text, it's actually going to do it to the entire text box. So I'll do that for now. But if you could cut this out and put it in a separate box, but then you'd have to move the type out and make it white. So actually, I guess I'll do that. I'll do that real quick. So let's say I wanted to cut just this part, and I'll just copy it, and then I'll just go somewhere else and I'll just paste, and there's that, and I'll put my margins back on and I'll stretch it out so it's over top of everything. And that way, if I put a drop shadow, it'll be the only thing here. And you might say, well, what about this thing here? Well, I'm just going to make this white. Instead of deleting it, which may mess up the spacing, I'm just going to go here and just make this paper, and then this one I'll put on top. But before I do that, I'll go here, I'll highlight it, I'll put on a drop shadow again. And if I wanted to do this, I could actually go here on this book. If I want to use the same drop shadow, I could go here and I could go to Object Styles, and I could just hit New. This is like making a paragraph style. And what I'm doing here is I'm just going to go to New Object Style, and I'm just going to call it Drop Shadow for now. And it has all these attributes, and I'm just going to, I guess, remove the stroke for now, and it should just do the drop shadow. I'll make sure I turn that off right now. I just want the I don't want the stroke on there, so I just want basically the drop shadow. So I'll hit OK. Okay, now I have a style called drop shadow. Now if I want to apply it to this, see if it works. That works fine. I'll move this up here, and now I got a little drop shadow. It's the same drop shadow that I used for my pictures, which should be fine. I don't want a real heavy drop shadow for text. And if I wanted to put I'll highlight this. If I wanted to put like a little white stroke on it, I could go to, actually not that one, I wanted to use this one for stroke for paper. And again, what's a little confusing, if you want to adjust the stroke width, you have to first get off it to see what it looks like, and it looks okay. If you'd want to go a little thinner for whatever reason, you'd have to go to your stroke palette and then go and maybe turn it down to like 0.75 if you want it just a little bit lighter. And that looks fine. I'll zoom out and I'll put my preview on, and that looks pretty good. We got a little drop shadow under there, so we get a little space, and I didn't put it on this part. And the last thing I'll do here is maybe try to put that ivory kind of background like I did on here, and you can see it's a gradient in the middle and it gets light on the outside. So the way you have to do this in InDesign is, I'll put my preview off, I'll just make a box here, and I'll preview it first. But what you need to do is you need to go to your swatches and you need to add a new color. So if you go up here in this little arrow here, the options, just do new color swatch, and you have to mix it up. So I'm gonna make it yellow and turn everything down. Now I don't want it yellow, but I just want a little yellow, and I'll add a little black to it, maybe a little magenta to it. Just a real subtle kind of color. I don't want a lot. I want it real pale. So that looks okay. It's like kind of a little off-white color. So remember, this is just going to be on the edge, and we'll have white on the inside. So I'll just save that. And then what I'll do is I'll apply a gradient to this box. And I'll just go to the gradient palette and just click on that. And that's unfortunately the stroke. So let me swap that around so that it's the fill. And there's the fill, and I wanted a radial. Now it's going from black on the outside to white in the center. And if you want to change that, you actually have to take this is weird. If you click on swatches, the gradient goes away. You almost have to drag the swatches palette out of there, and then you want to drag the color onto this little slider, because you can't double click the slider and edit it won't when you double click it, it won't open up like a little palette to change the color. So I'm going to drag this off of there, the black, I'm going to grab off, and now I made it a gradient of white to this off-white color. And what I could do is just take this box, stretch it out, and I'm just kind of, or you could stretch it out behind everything if you want. Just make it all, put it behind everything, and I would have to do an object, arrange, send to back, and and I'll put on my preview, and that doesn't look bad. It adds a nice little warmth because it pulls out the warmth from the picture down here. And there's something odd up here. Oh, I have the problem with the it's showing the white text from that other thing behind there. Well, I guess I could just nudge it up a little so it goes right over top. And if this was too light, you could go to you could actually click this box and go to transparency. That's actually an effect. So if you go to wherever you find effects, they're all over the place here. Wherever you go to effects, if you go to transparency, there is a mode here that you could turn the opacity down a little bit, because you can't really turn those inks down. But I think that looks okay. You know, that's kind of not a bad look. I mean, it's not as dynamic. This is a little more dynamic as far as the name up here and putting the picture up there, but this is a little more conservative. It'll still work. Hang it on a wall, take a look at it for a while, and then maybe try moving some things around a little bit. You don't want to feel like this is the finished version. This is one that you want to print out, take a look at, think about it a little bit, look at it from close up, far away, and then maybe make some more changes. That's how everybody's kind of worked out when we did this in class.